we'd like to thank our sponsors. So this would obviously not help, we wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have our sponsors. So I'd like to thank our College Central Network, along with Mountain Sac and Live and Jackie Kennedy Harris and 06 Media. Thank you for, helping in this event. And some of these sponsors that we've had have obviously done it over a period of time and many years. So we appreciate your partnership.
So it is really my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Keri. And Keri Aaver is speaking on leading with your strengths. And Keri is a friend of CPA. She's a past president. And I think she was only supposed to be president for 1 year, and then she stuck around for 2. And then she was like, okay, that's enough. No, but she was awesome. And it's good. It's always good to have you back, Keri. She's done some webinars for us and always has some great topics. So I'm going to introduce you now. So Keri, just to tell you a little bit about Keri, she's a consultant. She's the workforce development consultant for CareerWise Consulting. And so that's awesome. She's a career coach, a training specialist in workforce and higher education. Keri lives joy in building effective teams who are able to fast track job seekers into sustainable employment, guiding professionals in career transition to make career-wise decisions. She also trains workforce development staff to lead with strengths-based approach, which solves the great discontent and reduces resignation. So please welcome Keri Aaver. Yay.
Hey, thank you guys. It's great to see you. I just want to check a couple things before I dive right in. Can you please confirm for me that what you're seeing is my first slide of my PowerPoint?
Yes, it is.
Okay, without all my notes. And secondly, because on my screen, it's showing the backdrop in reverse. Are you seeing it forward?
We're seeing it forward.
Perfect. Awesome. Then I am super excited to be here and to dive in, and in particular on this topic, leading from your strengths. This is one of my favorite career geek topics to really talk about and to help others. I work with businesses and individuals to be able to do this in their own organizations or in their own careers. So ultimately, in good and bad times, turbulent times or good times, strengths-based approach to leadership really helps employers to retain employees, motivate job seekers and staff, and to also on a personal level on being able to reignite their own career passions and to help themselves stay engaged in their current roles. So as you heard, I'm Keri Aaver. I'm CEO of CareerWise Consulting, also former director of Santa Clarita America's Job Center, where my team, at least one member of which is here today, spinning out some great music, DJ Sarah. We, as a team at the America's Job Center, led the region in placements. And then I moved on to being director of College of the Canyons Community College Career Center, where I was responsible for doing training and leading of the Career Center team to really support the students and alumni in finding employment. I'm also a Gallup certified strengths coach, and I've really been using strengths coaching even prior to being certified in this since and I'm proud to admit it, since the 80s. So I've been doing this kind of stuff for a while. And today's session is really intended to give you, or webinar is really intended to give you some insights into how you can use strengths-based leadership in your own career development and to be able to lead from your strengths while helping others to do the same. For those of you, I don't know how many of you are, I probably should have put a poll in here, how many of you are familiar with strengths-based leadership or Strengthsfinder or Clifton Strengths, Gallup, Clifton Strengths. But in lieu of doing that, a strengths-based approach to leadership, whether it's leading your clients, your department, leading your own career development, it really focuses on strengths rather than weaknesses. It helps you to retain employees, motivate job seekers and staff, avoid burnout in your own career. And I'm going to show you a couple activities today, time permitting, we'll at least get one in, that you can use for yourself and or with your own team members to get started on the path to being a strengths-based leader. So let's get started, see if I can figure out how to turn from one slide to the next here. There we go. That was easy. So if you look at the numbers, you know, and I can't even see this as big as I would like to. You know, in 2021, US workers quit their jobs at the highest rates ever. You know, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number of job leavers increased from 164,000 to 942,000 in June of 2021. And in June of 2021, Monster.com's random survey of workers found that 95% were actually considering changing jobs. I don't think that's a big surprise to any of you here, knowing what you do and being in this industry alongside me, you know, in recent years, and some of you longer than myself. But more and more workers are leaving their jobs, hence the new term, the Great Resignation. But research at Gallup really has coined it as the Great Discontent. And if you look at numbers going back 20 years, what you would see is that the Great Discontent has been growing over the past 20 years. It didn't just begin with the advent of COVID. So this would kind of indicate that even as the experience of the past couple of years begins to resolve itself, there's still no signs of reversing this trend, because it began well before COVID got here and it's still climbing. And if I should have probably put the other chart up here to give you an idea, but it's a pretty steady line up, pretty consistent growth that we don't see changing. And one of the reasons that I love strengths-based leadership so much is utilizing a strengths-based approach to leadership and even career development is truly the fastest growing and most effective approach to reversing this trend of growing discontent, focusing on that strengths-based leadership and internal coaching, which I'll touch on just a little bit. But private corporations, nonprofits, higher education, including Stanford and others, really, you know, the ones that are ranked highest for student placement, staff retention, have begun to develop internal coaching structures to really obliterate both toxic work environments and to improve employee satisfaction on the job. I've been working with Stanford in recent months just to kind of pick apart what's working there and what's not working, but they really recognize the importance of bringing in this kind of coaching approach, strengths-based leadership into Stanford themselves, because they saw the turnover of staff and discontent among the remaining employees, and have put a lot of this into play already in the organization, already seeing huge strides in being able to retain and engage existing employees and attract others to the college. You'd think with Stanford, oh, well, they can get anybody they want. Not so. Company culture and what's happening in companies and organizations and academia, you know, the reputation typically precedes them when people are looking for where they want to work next, and now probably more than ever before. So, all right, let's see if I can run this poll. Doesn't look like it's going to let me do it. It won't let me do it because I'm, what do you call it? In a different Zoom account for this. But, you know, ultimately this poll that I had together, that I was hoping to get kind of a, you know, an idea of who here today, you know, for those of you that are attending right now, you know, in your own careers, or alternatively, the people that you're working with, you know, I feel like we've got these amazing jobs and what we get to do in workforce industry and in academia. So it may be that you're really content where you're at, or, you know, or not. But you may be working with a lot of people that are discontent, that are feeling burnt out, overworked, underpaid, maybe ready for a career transition, feeling lack of support perhaps from upper management, or what I've found in some of these other presentations that I've done, we've got leadership or management saying they're feeling a lack of support from their team members, and sometimes feeling stuck in their own current roles. So I can't poll you, so I don't know where you're at, but you know, if any of you would be willing to throw something in chat to just give me an idea of what you're seeing out there as kind of the career pain points, either for yourself or others that you're trying to help in career transition or into getting employed. What are the biggest, you know, pain points that you see that they're facing right now? That would be wonderful, because then I can customize some of what I'm talking about a little bit to those specific responses. So feel free to put some in there. Oh, this is exciting. Great. Okay. I just saw some of you have put in your strengths in there. Kim, thank you so much for doing that. Maximizer, intuitive, strategic, relational, restorative. So what you're seeing, those of you that aren't familiar with strengths, you're seeing some people putting their top 5 strengths in here, and you'll understand a lot more about that by the end of the presentation today. So Anisha's indicated, you know, she's seeing burnout, overworked, feeling stuck, people feeling stuck, position, overworked, underpaid, lack of upward mobility. Yes, absolutely. Overworked, short-staffed, right? Anytime we've had a recession or anytime we've had people cut back in staff, you know, the people that are remaining end up taking on more work, and companies, organizations, academia, you name it, are not usually real quick to refill those positions once things start getting better. Undervalued, yes, absolutely. Lack of support from upper management, overworked, underpaid. I like this. Shamara wrote, disconnect between how people want to work and how management wants them to work, remote, hybrid, in person. That's so true. And again, goes back to one of the reasons why I love strengths-based leadership, because it helps you to create a connect from that disconnect, to create stronger teams, you know, in order to, you know, again, to increase that satisfaction or contentment of the employees. And whenever we're going through change, especially things like this, we're remote, then we're not remote, and then we're sort of remote, and now no, everybody's got to be back at work. It's turmoil at its best, and it's universal in this particular case across the world. I just got back from a trip actually to Europe, and I spent a lot of time over there talking to people about their careers and what's happening there. And there's an awful lot of similarities in what they're experiencing and what they're feeling over there, and what we're hearing here. So, all right, exhausting. I like that, Liliana. Yes, change, transition, anyways, can be difficult and challenging. And in these last couple of years, it's just been truly accelerated. So, okay, I'm going to move on to the next one here. So let's dive right in. Let's see if I can help you with some solutions and some other ways to approach your own career and supporting others in their career development that might help you going forward. So talking about, and I'm going to, I have to close out my chat box for a minute. So I'll go back to the chat a little bit later. Otherwise, I'm like somebody chasing a squirrel. I'll keep jumping over and I'll completely lose track. So strengths-based leadership really focuses on recognizing what you and your team in the areas, you know, that they're strong in, and utilizing those strengths. When I was leading the America's Job Center that I mentioned, and then later the Community College Career Center, I really found the best way to support my staff, even in the most stressful environments. And those of you that work in America's Job Centers understand what I'm talking about. The best way for me to support my team was to do as much as I could to customize their roles based on individual strengths. And, you know, running an America's Job Center for me, honestly, was both the most stressful experience I've ever had in the workforce, and also the most rewarding. And so it's really near and dear to my heart to try to share this information with you today to help you to be in a better place doing that forward, and reducing the amount of stress that you have. So, you know, I don't believe that I would have been able to retain my staff in that environment. In particular, a few of the years when I was running the America's Job Center, our goals every year were moving targets. Some of you may have experienced that in your career centers or the companies that you're with. You know, when you push and push and everyone's working together as a team and you achieve a goal, and then all of a sudden the finish line gets moved. that is one of the most deflating, frustrating, disengaging things that can possibly happen in a team environment. And I really think that being able to connect with my team and find out where are you at, how can I support you, how can I make this job work better for you, you know, whether it was scheduling, whether it was their particular roles, the way they approach their jobs. I think that really had everything to do with the fact that I retained my staff and that I continue. I've been self-employed most of my life, and I've been in academia now for the last 10 years. And my ability, I think, to be able to retain staff, and part my good fortune, I would say, I think really is founded on this type of leadership. So it's not about leading the ways other people have led in the past. So, you know, if you've studied leadership or anything like that, we always talk about, oh, these great leaders and the way this person led and that person led. But it's really about using your own strengths as a leader and supporting your individual team members in doing the same. So I want to ask a question, and you can either unmute yourself if you'd like to respond, or you could put it in the chat. But who could briefly explain the difference between leadership and management? I just like to make sure that that's clear going into this presentation.
I'll volunteer.
Oh,
I think of
goes
a
on.
manager as being transactional, where they're monitoring transactions, where a leader is inspiring, motivating, guiding, engaged, and really not only about the work and the goals, but in regards to the individual as well.
Absolutely. You're spot on. You know, you manage systems, processes, work schedules, et cetera, but you really lead people. So a strengths-based leader coaches others to do better through increasing their internal motivation, improving self-knowledge, and a lot of guided listening, honestly, to assist others or themselves to achieving successful outcomes, rather than just assigning work and expecting results, right? A manager has to get things out there and get things done and get the processes moving forward. A leader is the one that kind of creates a cohesiveness and approaches what they do in a very different way that's I want to say focused even more on the team members than the outcomes, but they both have an equal impact. And coaches don't help you feel better, they help you do better. When you can do better by working within your strengths, you feel better. So you're going to see as I go through these slides and cover the different content, I'm going to use the word coaches and leaders kind of interchangeably during this presentation, because I believe the best leaders follow a coaching approach to supporting their team members, because it's really instead of taking the focus of, hey, here's our goals and this is what we're heading to, push, 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 let's go, 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 we got to reach these. It's more turning back to the staff and to the employees and saying, okay, let's see, where are you good at? How can we utilize that? How do we amplify that? How do I support you in using those strengths? And so that's why I use, you know, coach or leader fairly interchangeably. I have to figure an easier way to move these slides forward. Let's see. Okay. And just to touch on just very briefly, you know, what a strengths-based team is. You know, a strengths-based team is a group of imperfect, as you know, as are the leaders and the managers, group of imperfect but talented contributors who are really valued for their strengths and who need one another to realize both individual and team excellence. And the way I look at this, and honestly, the way that I have led every company I've ever had, I've had about 6 corporations or you know, companies of my own over the years. My perspective has always been that the leader, the manager, the director, the supervisor, et cetera, is not at a higher level than the other team members, but rather plays a very specific and important role in the development and support of their team as a member of that strengths-based team. So I wanted to make sure you all kind of know where I'm coming at from a strengths-based team approach. So Gallup pulled together, and as a Gallup Clifton Strengths coach, you're all probably familiar with Gallup. You know, they've been doing research for decades and decades, more than 50 years. They have, the Gallup poll that comes out and all this information that's used for research. If you've ever written a research paper, you might have pulled some information from a Gallup poll. Well, they pulled together a team of experts to review decades of data on leadership, interviewed more than 20,000 or interviews with more than 20,000 senior leaders, studies with more than 1 million work teams. That's a lot. That's a lot of data, right? Plus 50 years of Gallup polls about the world's most admired leaders. And when they did that study, and I want to say, I'm not a great details person if I don't write it down, but I want to say it was around 2006 was when they did the initial one. They've done a lot looping back around again, and we're going to see a lot more coming out now because of COVID in this year and next year. But when they did this study, they found 3 results. The most effective leaders are always investing in strengths, their own strengths and the strengths of their team. The most effective leaders surround themselves with the right people and then work to maximize their team and their individual team members' use of their strengths. And the most effective leaders understand their followers' needs. And so I'm going to talk about all of those things today. We're going to start with investing in your strengths. Let me take a quick peek in the chat, see if there's anything. This is, oh, awesome. Okay, good. So some of this is resonating. Fantastic. Great to see that. Okay. So investing in your strengths. So trying to succeed in all areas is really a recipe for burnout. And, I want to say, raise your hand if you've ever had an employer that wanted you to succeed in every area at all times simultaneously, right? It's exhausting. It is really exhausting. And sometimes, in honesty, some of you are the type of individuals that you don't need someone to put you in that situation. You put yourself in that situation where you are trying to succeed in every area at all times. But it really is a recipe for burnout and poor team performance. And that's why it's important to understand your own strengths and to lead from them while really surrounding yourself with others that have complementary strengths. It's a lot more enjoyable. I got to tell you, I've done both. I've definitely done both. And sometimes I fall back into that, got to do everything. And I have strong enough teams that my team members, actually, I try to empower my own team members to say, hey, pull back, I got this. And I love that. I welcome that. I encourage them, please. I had a team member, I used to get so intense sometimes running the America's Job Center. I had a team member that when she could see that my stress level was climbing and I was trying to do too much, she would just come to the door of my office and deep breathe for a minute or two to remind me, hey, you got a whole team. This isn't on you. And when you have a really strong strength-based team, that's how it works. It's really a beautiful synergy. So each of us has great potential for growth and success when we focus on our greatest strengths rather than our weaknesses. But without self-awareness of our strengths, leading effectively really at some point becomes impossible. You're going to crash and burn at some point. If you're trying to use things that you're not the best at, there's probably someone else in your team that's better at it than you, but rather than empowering them to utilize that strength, you're trying to muscle through, and it creates a breakdown in communication, all sorts of problems. So this lack of self-awareness and awareness of what team members are best at can really lead to disengaged employees, unhappy customers, and stress. So if that's what you're going after, keep doing what you're doing. If you'd rather to flip the coin and reignite your passions for what you do, reduce your stress levels, increase your repeat business and your success outcomes, then stick with me. I'm going to get you there. So the research that I was talking about before really shows that most employees don't get the opportunity to do what they're best at every day. When organizations don't focus on individual strengths, the odds that employees will consistently be engaged is 1 in 11, less than 10%. However, if you have the opportunity to work in your strengths, and you're supported in doing that, engagement increases to 73% on average. I mean, that is just night and day. I mean, think for a minute how that feels to be part of a team where the bulk of the team members, less than 10% are really engaged. I can imagine that a certain percentage of you here today have experienced that before, where you have been on teams where a few people were really pulling all the weight and the others were sort of like not at their desk most of the time or off doing different things. And that's a difficult place to be in. But I don't fault the employees all the time in those situations. I really think that that's where a good leader comes in. So when management, focuses on employee weaknesses, employee confidence plummets along with their performance. So, an example is like annual, just by show of hands, those of you on, how many of you do annual performance reviews or have to participate in annual performance reviews? There's some, and you can even use your little, there you go, there's a couple hands going up. So it's common. This is kind of the American way of doing things. It's done in other countries also, but and in those annual performance reviews, the way they're typically utilized, when they're utilized, I guess, effectively, and I use that word effectively a little bit loosely here, is by pointing out areas for improvement. What are you doing really good at? And oh, and by the way, here's what I want you to improve on. Fail. That's a big fail, right? Because what do people remember? They don't remember the successful things that they did, right? All they remember is that, yeah, you told me I need to improve on this. And so this whole idea that, if we tell them 10 good things, we can tell them one bad thing and it won't impact them negatively. It doesn't exactly apply in workforce settings and in this type of situation. So one of the activities that I'm going to show you today will hopefully help you focus on what really should be improved on in a way that empowers the team members to decide what they want to improve on in a way that's going to help your team. So that's one of the activities that we'll be doing a little bit later on. And, one of the things I mentioned here when we're talking about investing in strengths and increasing satisfaction and success and all these things, I'm sure that probably most of you here are familiar with No Child Left Behind. It was a valiant effort. I think that, we always have to try new things to see what works and what doesn't. But what ended up happening with that, in case some of you are not familiar with that, is that we took high achievers and low achieving students, right? And we turned the focus to the low achieving students and trying to help them improve what they were not good at. What ended up happening is, we didn't exactly stop them from being left behind, because if you focus on trying to improve things that people are not good at, you can move the needle a bit, but not anything in comparison to if you focus on what they're good at. We would have seen a much greater increase in the lower achieving students had we been able to focus on what they're good at and help them to utilize that in a way to counterbalance those weaknesses, rather than trying to tell a student that math is just like they're horrible. Please don't make me do anything related to math. I feel like a failure when I do it. And you're sitting there saying, no, you've got to get better at this. You've got to get better at this. Instead, focusing on reading, and maybe if that's a strength of theirs, then how does that play into, word problems and things like that? How, that they would achieve a much greater level of increased success at a much faster pace doing that. So that's why I like to use No Child Left Behind as an example. Okay, so the first one I said, was really focusing on strengths. The second thing that great leaders do is they maximize individual and team strengths. So effective leaders surround themselves with the right people, and they build on the strengths of each one. Many leadership teams are developed as individuals are promoted on knowledge, competence, and job function. I would say most, not even many, or sometimes even time on the job. I mean, some of you know people that got promoted just because they'd been somewhere for a certain amount of time, rather than the strengths that best complement the existing team members. It's just a different way of doing things. And when leaders choose new team members, what often happens is they choose others that act, think, and behave like themselves. You know, I wonder how many of you have experienced that, where maybe you had a supervisor that you were kind of struggling to work with, and then they brought someone else and introduced this new team member, and you're like, oh no, now we've got two of them, you know, compounded the challenges. But, you know, a company can't really grow or keep up with changing times if they only select like-minded people with a similar background and personality. And this explains some of the ongoing challenges we face in increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Things like 95% of, you know, corporate board members being men. They keep choosing what they're familiar with, right? And so when you adopt a strengths-based approach and you look for what areas, and we'll talk about this more on the next slide too, what areas maybe is our team lacking in, then when you interview very differently. You look at, you know, I'm looking for someone with this particular type of or category of skill set that we're missing, and that becomes stronger than, do you know how to do A, B, C, and D? Right? Because you can take someone, for example, you can take someone that is really good at getting things done, and you can put them in just about any environment and they're going to get things done. And that's something that, you know, is a strength that would come out of that. So strong teams are really built with team members from 4 different domains. Executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. This is based on the research from Gallup. And, you know, conflict, you know, okay, let me say this. Individuals should not feel like they need to be strong in all 4 areas, but teams need to have each area of strength covered collectively by individual team members. So in order to have strong teams, you know, there's 5 things I like to point out. What does a strong team look like? So in strong teams, because some of you maybe have never been on a strong team. I know I've worked with students in the past, job seekers in the past, that had never been in an optimal work situation or an optimal work environment. And so their expectation as to what they're going to get in their next jobs can sometimes be pretty low. But so that's why I want to talk just briefly about what a strong team is. So in strong teams, conflict doesn't destroy strong teams, because strong teams focus on results. They can have healthy debate. It comes out of bringing diverse teams of individuals together with a common goal in order to achieve team success. Strong teams prioritize what's best for the organization when moving forward, and it's done more effectively when individual team members feel that their contributions are valued by the team, but which also allows individuals to kind of put their egos aside. And when, you know, even when their input is not chosen as the next best step at any given moment, because if you've got a strong team, you could have 5 great ideas as to what to do next, but you have to choose one perhaps. And so if you choose one and you don't have a strong team, then the other 4 people are feeling like, well, what was wrong with my idea? Why didn't mine get picked? But if you have a strong team that's supportive of each other, you know that you're going to try this one out. If it works, great. If not, you know, you're going to try another one next time, or maybe this is the first one and now we're going to try my idea the next time. It's all focused on, you know, coming out with the outcomes, the common outcomes that you're looking to achieve. So, you know, when individuals feel valued in their work, when they're able to work in their strengths, they bring the same energy, commitment, engagement to their jobs, honestly, as they do their personal lives. So those people that are at work and they're on the go and they're going and they're connected, they're engaged, that energy really kind of mirrors the energy that they apply to the other things and the other relationships in their lives outside of work. Strong team members embrace diversity of age, gender, ethnicity, ability, and experience, right? Diversity helps to create out-of-the-box thinking and to avoid groupthink, which often results in doing the same, you know, things or doing things the same way that they've always been done and expecting different results or growth, right? So another, those of us that are huge proponents, which I think is probably most, if not all of us here today, we're really in support of diversity, equity, and inclusion as an important goal of everyday work life. And when you look at those things, we recognize the value of that diversity, that if we have a team where everyone has a similar background, they all got the same degree, they all went to the same school, they all grew up in the same kind of neighborhood, our outcomes are not going to be nearly as strong. Oop, I lost my screen for a minute. Okay. Strong teams also are magnets for talent. So what's happened in COVID in the last couple of years is that people have lost employees and their employers are struggling to fill those positions, to refill positions, or to fill new open positions. Well, when there are strong teams in place, and that becomes apparent because somebody on a strong team, they're the greatest advocate, right? Oh, you should come work with us. Oh my gosh, my college or my company or my organization could really utilize someone with your strengths. They become a natural talent magnet for others. It's a natural solution for attracting really the best and brightest candidates for open positions. However, building or designing a team based on strengths doesn't really stop there. So you can't just, when I interview and I'm looking for certain strengths to fill certain gaps that we have, it doesn't just stop there when I hire that person. Leaders need to continue to support and develop team members' strengths in order to maintain that engagement and success. And we're going to talk about these further here in just a moment. All right, so here's this, I put this slide up here. This is a standard slide in Clifton Strengths to give you an idea. There's 34 different strengths in Strengthsfinder, and these are the 4 categories that they fit into. And when leading from your strengths and coaching others based on their strengths, both your own and your team's career satisfaction is going to be increasing while you and your clients achieve determined outcomes at a much faster pace. My team at the Santa Cruz Americas Job Center, actually 1 year, our placement goals, we completed all of them in 9 months. We literally had a celebration. We threw a party for ourselves because we were like, oh my gosh, we just blew it out of the ballpark, enrollments, placements, you name it, right? And the next week we came in and we're told that now we were behind, that they had given us goals from other centers that were not as high performing. And now it was our responsibility the next 3 months to catch up and achieve our goals. So I'm assuming that's our center is probably not the only one that has experienced that. So some of you may have experienced that in your college career centers or at your America's Job Centers or in your companies even. But having that team, like I mentioned before, that's really designed around individual staff strengths and leading with a strengths-based approach. Again, I believe that that's what helped us to succeed when other centers, really in the middle of a recession, there were not job openings, and it was a difficult time during that year. But it really helped us to achieve what other centers were struggling to even come close to meeting their goals that year. So in that organization, no 2 of my job developers had exactly the same role, nor did they approach their jobs in the same fashion. Now, in a non-strengths-based environment, it's a little bit cookie cutter, right? Hey, this is the job of a job developer. This is what you need to do, and here's how I want you to do it. It works for me. It's worked for other people. This is how I want you to do it. Which does work. I'm not saying that doesn't work, but if you really want to have outstanding results, being able to focus on those individual differences and strengths of the team members will help you do that a lot more easily. And so some of my team, some wanted to do workshops rather than always focusing on one-on-one interactions. They wanted to be regularly doing workshops. Others preferred to work with a confined group of clients all the way to a placement. In other words, they wanted to fast forward those people to a placement and then take on new clients. And another one was really energized by mentoring new volunteers and staff. So there was a preference to take a portion of their time every week and really help be more supportive of the rest of the team and other people that weren't even in job development. And those things all allowed them to utilize their strengths in a way that kept them engaged in their jobs and helped them to achieve their individual success in job placements and enrollments and stuff at a much faster pace. So in these 4 domains or broad categories of strengths that you see on this slide, they include executing. So these are the people that really make things happen or move them to completion. I always have to have people like that on my team. I'm an achiever, but that's the only one I have under executing. So if I don't have other achievers on my team, that's when I'll see things getting almost to the finish, but not quite to the finish line. Influencing, those are the individuals, that are strong in that domain, are the people that will take charge, they'll speak up, they'll make sure that others are heard, because some people will just kind of feel dejected and left out without saying anything. Someone that's influencing, those are the ones that are going to try to help re-engage them, get them engaged, speak up on their behalf. They also help organizations to reach a much broader audience, individuals that are strong in those areas. The next one, relationship building. Actually both in the America's Job Center and in my Career Center, I found a lot of that on my team members, but not everybody. And the ones that didn't have relationship building skills were really strong, like incredibly strong in one of these other categories. And so again, their jobs looked very different from each other. But individuals strong in relationship building tend to be kind of the glue that holds the team together and helps to make groups greater than the sum of its parts. And then finally, leaders that are strong in strategic thinking, they do a great job of absorbing and analyzing information to help the team make better decisions for the future. So you can see these are all very different, but all very necessary to find success and to achieve outcomes. Any one of these approaches can result in more efficient or effective achievement of positive outcomes. And in each of these categories, each leader, you can imagine, would have a different approach to achieving their goals and different ways of solving problems. But strong teams are really built with having, as I mentioned, and you'll hear me probably say it 3 or 4 more times, by having team members that have strengths in every one of these 4, not one person necessarily having strengths in all of them, but each of those domains covered. So, for example, some leaders focus on getting a job done, while others inspire others on the team to do great things. Relationship builders make sure everyone's working together as a team. While strategic thinkers may help to provide data-driven insights to bring clarity to obstacles and why certain things that they tried out were actually successful. And the best teams are really made up of people that are empowered to utilize their greatest strengths in their roles, and include team members, not just including team members that have all these different domains covered, but also that are paired with resources, opportunities to try and fail and try again. Staff, having knowledge that they are valued for what they bring to the table. If you have all those things together, you really have a guaranteed path to success, regardless of the outcomes that you're looking for. And the best way to predict whether or not a team is going to be functional is if members say yes when they're asked, if they're respected by their supervisors. If all these blind surveys that are done, when I've done it a couple times with different companies, I know a lot of people that have done a lot more than me, but they go in and they poll the employees of the organization. So when I'm doing business consulting, I'll go in and I'll poll the employees I will know who's responding how, because I need to be able to coach them and guide them and help them to be successful. But the higher up people in the organization won't know who said what, But one of the questions that's very commonly asked is, do you feel respected by your supervisors or by your leadership? And then we ask for feedback, on where are they doing a good job? Where are they not? I went back after a couple of years after running the America's Job Center, and I actually went back to my staff members, my team members, and I've done this actually twice in different environments. And I asked them, what did you like about working for me? What did you not like about working for me? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? How could I have done that better? How could I have made the work environment better for you? And I have to tell you, I will continue to do that the rest of my working life, because the feedback I got, and I got very genuine, honest feedback. I can say that some, the negative stuff is never like something that you're like, oh yeah, tell me more, tell me more. But it felt good to know that I had a strong enough trust with my staff that they were able to be very honest with me. For example, one of the feedback I got from, every one of my team members was really high performing, but one of them said to me, you could have been a little less task focused and a little bit more relational at times. And knowing my strengths, I know that because I was being more task focused at times and less relational, in those times, I was feeling more stressed because I'm a very relational person. And so if I had recognized that in the moment, and I kind of did, but it kind of came and went, the recognition, then I could step back a little bit and slow down. It doesn't take that much to make slight shifts when you know where the challenge is. So, employees prefer leaders who are stable and consistent, which is best achieved by, every team member when working from their innate and developed strengths. If you're always trying to do things that are not in your wheelhouse, they're not what you're best at, that creates inconsistencies, because on your best day, you're going to do okay, even working in your weaknesses. On your worst day, if you got to do something that you are not that great at, you don't like to do it, it's not going to work out real well for you. So the most effective leaders are always investing in their own strengths and those of their team members. 73% of employees indicate they're more engaged when employers focus on their personal abilities, and only 9% feel engaged when this does not happen. Any questions so far on that? We're going to jump into some activities here in a second. So anything, let me see what's in the chat. I got a few things I didn't see there. Okay. All right. So understanding team members' needs. So this is really key, in strengths-based leadership. You need to understand why people are following what you ask them to do. Why do they do what you ask them to do? What do they need and expect from you? You need to know this information. It's really critical to have this information, and just assuming why it is can really bite you in the butt, because somebody might be getting things done just because they're gritting their teeth and they're like, I can't wait to leave. I can't wait to get out of this position, and then all of a sudden you're like blindsided. You're like, you did such a great job on that, and that was amazing. But what you missed is you didn't understand why they were doing what they were doing. So you weren't able to engage and connect with them in a way that supported them in that role. But they were high achievers. They had their own internal locus of control to be successful. And so they still achieved, right? But leaders are only as strong as the connections that you have in your circles, the people on your team. I could sit here for a couple hours and go over examples of that, where I had, I've either personally had really strong teams, or I've worked with others that had really strong teams. And there was one weak link, right? There was one person in there that was just not connected, not feeling connected. As a matter of fact, in one role that I was in, it took me 3 months to figure out what was going on, because there was lack of trust. There was, I came into a situation where I took over where someone else was before. You could cut the air like with a knife, as they say, a butter knife. And it took 3 months before one person that was on someone else's team finally stepped forward and said, oh, I can't keep this to myself anymore. This is what's going on. And that changed everything. And that happened because of the strengths-based leadership. And even though these individuals and the person that came forward was not on my team, I consider, as you should, anybody that you interact with or work with, collaborate with, partner with, they're a team member. They're part of your circle. And so those relationships are really important, and building and maintaining that trust and allowing them, the more you can know about them, what they like to do and what they're good at, the easier it's going to be to build those relationships and maintain those relationships too. So Gallup asked 10,000 people that we would call followers, right? People that work for someone else, they do what they're told, they have a certain role, responsibilities. They asked them, what leader has the most positive impact on your daily life, or has had in the past the most positive impact on your daily life? And what do you want and need most from the influential leaders in your life? Trust, compassion, stability, and hope were hands down the items that came out of that. And they were allowed to, this wasn't a check off, which one of these are the ones that you would agree with? This was a write us back and tell us in your own words, who had the positive impact, who was most influential. And those are the words that came up time and time again. The best leaders that they had, the ones that they, felt were the best work environments, had trust, compassion, stability, and hope. All items were greatly tested in organizations around the world in the last 2 years, right? I mean, with everything going on with COVID, there's distrust is rampant. Information is not being shared. Things were happening and people didn't know when or why or how, or did they still have a job when they came back? Or, if I can't come back because I've got, extenuating circumstances, but they're calling everyone back to work. Am I going to lose my job? So all of those things, trust and stability, were definitely tested. Hope, people lost hope with their own situations and everything they struggled with emotionally, personally in the last couple of years. And then a lack of compassion, a sense of a lack of compassion at the very least, where they felt like they're not recognizing my situation. Students that, were having to work on campus, even though 100% of their classes were now online. So they were commuting just to go to a 4-hour-a-day job for minimum wage, when the job could have been done at home remotely. Things like that, kind of take away from the compassion that someone feels in that environment, especially if nothing is communicated. So trust, without trust at work, the odds of employees being engaged, again, is 1 in 12. With trust, it's 1 in 2. With trust, speed and consistency is increased as employees feel more connected and skip formality to really get right to what needs to get done, to get things done. Compassion, people expect compassion from higher up leaders and caring from their direct leaders. And they value being recognized as humans with a need for connection and well-being. So people want to be able to enjoy their work, right? They want to, work, to enjoy working while living, as opposed to being asked to live for their work. And I think a lot of that in these last couple of years has been really tested, right? Well, okay, yeah, I understand you got stuff going on in your own life, but this is what you're going to have to do here for us. And it's a challenge on both sides. I've been an employer longer in my life than I've been an employee. So I see both sides of this. Stability. People want leaders that they can depend on in times of need. They need, a paycheck, or to feel secure about their jobs at the very least. But having a sense of where the organization's headed, in some situations, financial stability. Is that grant going to be renewed? Is that money still going to be there for, the next year coming around? And transparency is really key to achieving that stability. When decisions seem to come from out of nowhere or from backroom discussions, stability is really on a rocky ground. And then finally, and then we're going to go into the first activity here that you can use with yourself and your own staff, hope. Knowing things can and will be better in the future is a powerful, powerful motivator. In some research circles, they would say that, in most of the research that I've seen and in recent things that I've been able to participate in, most individuals that say that hope is the most powerful motivator, because once you don't have it, it doesn't matter what else is trying to push you forward or drive you forward. It's like, pulling a sleigh up I don't know, something very difficult. I've never pulled a sleigh. Maybe I should come up with a better analogy. But with hope absent, people lose confidence. They disengage. They lose confidence in their leaders and their organizations, or feel helpless. Leaders that react to change, which some of you may have seen this in the last couple of years, react to change too much, indicate they themselves are not in control. Rather than responding effectively in a timely fashion with the right amount of information and the type of information needed by their team members. And I've been in that place myself, being a little bit more reactionary rather than, kind of holding it, I don't know the expression, holding it close to the cheek or whatnot. It's important to be able to improve on and always to work on our emotional intelligence so that we know what to share and what not to share. Sometimes I think I really erred as a leader on sharing too much information, and that took a ding out of hope, right? Because if you share too much information, people are thinking, well, okay, well, that doesn't give me any stability. I'm not feeling like it's great to know that, but what does that mean for me? And so sometimes it's better to wait till the right time to share certain types of information. So, okay, come on. All right, so this is something that I use. So not all of you are, strengths coaches. Some of you might want to be. I encourage you, if it's something that's of interest to you, go ahead. But you can be a strengths-based leader without being a certified strengths coach like myself. And one of the things that I do with team members is a matrix. And at the end of this, I'll actually send you a handout. I'll email it to you if you want. You'll be able to email me a request and I'll send it over. And you can use it with your own team members or with yourself. And I call it the "You Get the Best of Me When" worksheet. And these are the 4 questions I use. So usually when I use this, I've actually already had them do the Strengthsfinder assessment. I already know what their top 5 workplace strengths are. And that really helps me to be able to lead effectively or more effectively. But this I have found over the last, I want to say the last 4 years that I've been using this tool alone has given me an enormous amount of information that has helped me to be a better leader with my team members, a better strengths-based leader. And these are the 4 questions that I ask. I give it to the staff, the individual staff members, and I ask them to fill them out. It's a full page. And the first one, what kind of work environment brings out the best in you? You're going to get all sorts of stuff in there, but that's gold. To know that, to know what you can help to create for your employee. And it's going to be different. I can tell you, I have dozens and dozens and dozens of these sheets filled out. Some from my own staff, some from other organizations and businesses that I've worked with and done internal coaching with. And if you didn't even ask the other 4, that alone would help to make you a better leader and to know how to better support your team members. This whole activity actually will help you to know how to best support and utilize your team members in a fashion that helps you to keep them engaged and to know what they need to be successful, even in the midst of change. So the next question then is, what kind of work environment brings out the worst in you? It's interesting because sometimes people they've got, you kind of know where they're coming from if they're filling up a lot more in that section than they were in the first one, right? That tells you right off the bat, well, I haven't found my best work environment yet. And this is a perfect opportunity for a strengths-based leader to really dive into their strengths and help create their first ever outstanding work environment, because that's going to lift them up to go on and develop their careers in a way that impacts so many more people positively also. But so that's also a very telling question. Then the next one I go to is, okay, so as part of a team, what can I count on you for? What do you bring to the table? What is it that you are really consistent about? Is it that, you're the person that always makes sure that things get done on time? If somebody is falling short and you see they're not going to finish their part in time, are you that person that steps up to support that person or says, you know what, if I see you're kind of busy and our deadline's coming, let me take that on? What is it? What are those things that as part of a team that I know that you are my go-to person, that in a crunch, this is how you want to help out, and this is how you can, that will really help us achieve success. And then that last question.
Keri,
yes.
I'm sorry. I'm hoping you're almost done because we're just
I am.
Time. Okay, great.
Oh, is it? I'm sorry. Okay. And that's the thing missing on here is I can't see the time. I am. So the last one on here. Yeah, I have one like goodbye, thank you slide after this. So the last one, when you give me something new to do or a new way to do it, I need you to, and that's them telling you, okay, if you're going to make changes and things like this, some people need details. They want you to spell it out in black and white. Others need you to give them the general gist of what's happening and then trust them to do their best work and support them if they come to you. So knowing the answers to that is going to be really helpful for you as a strengths-based leader. So I'm not going to go over that one. I had that in there just in case I had extra time, right? That never happens. So just 2 quotes to leave you with. When we tell people to do their jobs, we get workers. When we trust people to get their jobs done, we get leaders. And if you spend your life trying to be good at everything, you'll never be great at anything. And that's a quote directly from Tom Rath, who's one of the proponents of strengths-based leadership. So thank you for attending today. I am sorry. I apologize that I ran over. I have to get better. I need a big clock above my head or something. But thank you for attending today's session on Leading from Your Strengths. I'm Keri Aaver, CEO consultant of CareerWise Consulting LA. Next steps could include picking up a copy of Strengths-Based Leadership or Strengthsfinder 2.0, completing your own strengths assessment to begin developing and leading with the greatest strengths. And if any of you would be interested in a copy, like I said, of You Get the Best of Me When.
Are you able to upload it to chat? You can upload
I
files.
Or leave it up really quick and maybe we could get some people to take a quick photograph as well.
It's
I-
going to
I
be a
need you to talk
wonky
about her
size
handout.
in the screen. So if you just want to, my email's on there. If you just want to send me an email and tell me, what you'd be interested in, if you want a copy of the Best of Me handout, any additional information, any of the other webinar I did earlier, if there's anything else you want from that. If you want information about upcoming webinars, global career development facilitator or certified career service professional training, LinkedIn training, upcoming CareerWise Transition Accelerator Week, which is, for you or any clients considering a career transition, that's free. That's something I'll be doing for free. Feel free to send me an email. Let me know what you'd like, how I can help. And I also offer free 30-minute coaching sessions for individuals looking for clarity on their career transition. So I wanted to just end that by saying thank you so much. Thank you, CPA, so much for having me here. I believe no one should have to settle for a toxic work environment. Everyone deserves work that excites them, gets them up in the morning, excited to go into work. And I'm on really on a mission to create pay equity and positive work environments across the globe and to restore work satisfaction. So whether you work for yourself or someone else, you have the potential to become career wise and increase your pay and satisfaction by more than 30% this year. I'm happy to help in any way I can. So enjoy the rest of your conference. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn also. Thank you guys so much. I love being here with you.
Thank you, Keri.
We will be March 1st through the 3rd, 2023 at the DoubleTree Hilton at the Golf Resort in Palm Springs. We look forward to seeing you there. Think about it, save the date, start mentioning it, and plan it on your fiscal budget for next year so that we can see you live and in person.